Hello and welcome back. Candice here. I'm continuing the segment about animals, and these next few videos will give you some pointers on how I communicate with the non-physical, but realize that not only includes angels and guides, but animals, and animals on both sides of that rainbow bridge. I hope I can include some examples of working with pets using my grandchildren to demonstrate. Unfortunately, I live in a condo, and for the first time in my life, I found myself without having four-legged friends to live with. So let me start some of the background and let me share some of the foundations that you really need, or what I found was very necessary for me in order for these communications to occur. Several years ago, I registered for an animal communication course, and a few days before the program was to begin, I began dreaming about the pets I've had throughout my life. Now, this is important for several reasons. The dream state is a perfect place for communication with the non-physical to occur. It occurs all the time, but the tricky part is learning to remember your dreams. But don't ever discount how significant dreams may be. This was a familiar routine for me by now, having information arrive, and in this case in the form of dreams, just before an event like a program I was to attend. At this point, I'd been channeling for about 6 years, and I knew that my intention to do something often brought those energies into my field of awareness. As the time approached for the program, signs, especially in the dream state, would just fly into my awareness. Often I would experience scenarios that wouldn't make sense to me until a few days later when I was at the program. And then the event leaders would introduce themselves, and then I would chuckle because it would all make sense. They would introduce an exercise, and I'd realize this was the exact same exercise I had experienced a few days before in my dreams. This was exactly what happened prior to the animal communication program. Almost every pet I had owned made an appearance in my dream. It wasn't just the four-legged ones. I mean, it's understandable that my horses, my dogs, my cats, even baby squirrels we had rescued, they would show up, and I get that. But sometimes my hamsters and birds made an appearance, okay? But what really surprised me was my fish. I had fancy-tailed guppies, I had betta fish, and these would show up in my dreams. What was it that I learned about this program, animal communication? Well, the program itself, I didn't learn anything new, but it reinforced what I already knew. It's all about energy exchange, intention, and allowing. Each of us have the innate ability to communicate with animals, and that communication can occur whether the animal is living in our 3D world or whether they've transitioned. But it all starts with intention. What exactly is intention? It's a prerequisite. It's something that must happen before an action. It's not the action, but it's like, I guess, the commitment to carry out the action. Sometimes it's so subtle that you don't even recognize it's there. Therefore, you don't realize the power of it. But once you set the intention, it sets up the surrounding energy field to help with manifesting your action, the action that hasn't even occurred yet. It sort of primes the pump of a well, allowing the water to flow. So let me share with you some of the behaviors associated with my intention to attend the animal communication program. The first step was registering for it. That started the whole process. Then, as the start date for the program approached, I began the process of packing my suitcases, a little bit here, a little bit there, dragging down the suitcase, making my little list of what I need to pack. All of these behaviors resulted from my intention to communicate with animals. But the first often overlooked step is that intention. It was setting up that energy field for the event to occur. The next step is to realize how we communicate. To effectively communicate, whether it's with people or whether it's with animals or plants even, we need to engage our hearts. We need to speak from the heart space. This is also where we learn to connect with the realms of spirit, the subtler realms of energy. Another key factor is trust. You may think you are making this up when we start communicating with our pets, and maybe you are, but that's a great starting point. Learn to just play with it. Put yourself back in the mind of a 4-year-old. My granddaughters, Shalane, age 4, and Lorelei, age 8, they don't stop to judge when they're playing. I'll be telling them a story and they get so involved and they'll bring up scenes that they want to play out in the story. They just let their minds expand. And the end result is this myriad of possible scenarios to add to the depth and breadth of the story. So it's that kind of thing. Make it up, let it go, let it flow. Because communication, all communication is based on an energy exchange. And the way energy works is, as I've said before, like water in a hose. When you turn on the spigot, it wants to flow. But when we judge, we end up, in essence, crimping the hose. It stops the flow. Stopping to say, I'm making this up, will inhibit that flow. Whereas encouraging yourself to say, let's just pretend and make this up, the more the merrier, the wilder the better, you encourage the flow. These first steps are all about getting into the energy of flow. Once that tap is open, it will balance out and find its own level. Start with your imagination. Intentionally make it up. And once the energy flows, it will take its own course. Now, before we start with communicating with the domesticated animal like a cat or a dog that exists in three-dimensional reality, let me start with another story. This was a spontaneous interaction between Lorelei and a Florida panther at Naples Zoo. I was on the sidelines coaching in 2014, and actually Lorelei was just 2 at the time. She and I went to an outing to the zoo. They had a new animal. He had an exhibition all to himself. It was an adult Florida panther who was rescued by Animal Wildlife after someone had shot him. He'd lost one eye and the other eye was blinded. He was hit in the back. So he was completely without sight and injured. But once he was well enough, Naples Zoo provided him a home. He had a large enclosure all to himself. He'd been there just for a few days. And as Lorelei and I approached this huge enclosure, we saw a worker standing by. She was maybe 25, 30 at the tops. And she gave us the history of this beautiful panther. She said we probably wouldn't see him because he had been hidden at the back of the enclosure ever since he arrived. Now, I thought, aha, I know different. I turned and spontaneously just gave some instructions to Lorelei. I did this loud enough so the zookeeper could hear. And I told Lorelei, I said, call the panther over, call him to come and see us. She opened her mouth to do so when I said, shh, call him with your heart, not your mouth. This was so precious to watch. She just like took this deep breath and puffed out her chest so her heart could talk. And she did. You could just see her saying, come over. But it worked. Now, this zoo worker right next to us wasn't looking at us, but it was clear that she could hear my conversation. And she said, oh, look, there he is. I can't believe it. He's coming out of hiding. Wow. She was so excited. I then turned to Lorelei and I said, continue calling him. I told her to tell him that we just want to see him and let him know that we care about him. the panther started coming closer. And with each step that he took, the worker got more and more excited. She was saying things like, oh, I can't believe it. Wow, there he is. He came all the way to where we were, and there was only a large glass wall that separated us from this magnificent blind animal. I told Lorelei to thank him for letting us see him, and she did. And the panther turned around and returned to his hiding spot, where we couldn't even see him. The foliage was so dense. This worker was absolutely ecstatic. I expected her to literally be jumping up and down. She just kept saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. The worker didn't realize that you could do this. Here was a 2-year-old who intuitively, once I, coached her what to do, brought this beautiful animal out of hiding. And how did she do it? Using her heart. I'm guessing that this worker really wasn't ready to hear that a precocious child could communicate with this wild animal. There are several key takeaways from this. First of all, if you have children or grandchildren, let them help you communicate with your pets. They're not afraid to do so, and they are naturally more open, less judgmental, so they can make the connections very easily. Secondly, use your heart. I know I keep repeating myself, but this is how we communicate with the non-physical, with animals. And if we do communicate with others, if we want it to be more meaningful, it's through the heart. Another key, even if you don't think you've connected on your first try, show your gratitude. Just like I told Lorelei, tell the panther thank you. So you do the same. Thank your animal friend. Thank your pet. When you do that, that washes them with good, positive energy, and they feel it. It makes them feel more comfortable with future communications too. Now that you know the basics, we're going to stop for the day. Next week, I'll give you some specifics on what to do in this chain of beautiful communications between you and your four-legged friends. Remember, my mantra for this year is to be kind. Be kind to others, to your four-legged friends, and especially be kind to yourself. Next week, we'll talk about learning how to clear your energy field and ground yourself. These are all great prerequisites for animal communication. So until next time, check out my book, The Reluctant Messenger, also The Reluctant Messenger Returns on Amazon. They're both on Audible. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, of course. I have 2 more channels. You'll see the links below, and Instagram. So until next week, I hope everyone stays healthy. We'll see you later. Bye.